Welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, my name is Bryan Jenks, and today we're talking about the absolute state of spaced repetition in Obsidian. What this means is we're going to talk about what even is spaced repetition, why you should use it, why and how I use it, and all the ways that we can use it in and with the Obsidian note-taking application. Quick note before we get started, the best ways to support the channel on an ongoing basis would be GitHub sponsors followed by Patreon. Patreon takes fees, GitHub sponsors doesn't. And if you are just interested in a one-time donation, buy me a coffee or PayPal work just fine. If you're interested in supporting the channel, not required, but greatly appreciated. Those are the best ways to do it. So if you're ready to hear about some spaced repetition, stay tuned. So just to start off, what is spaced repetition? It's likely something you've seen around in the productivity sphere, learning, and all these different areas of YouTube and content. Is we talk a lot about spaced repetition nowadays, but what even is it? So I have a note on spaced repetition in my Obsidian vault, and I just think that this graphic, this picture, sums it up very, very well. Spaced repetition is a method of learning through the usage of flashcards, and that's it. That is it. It is using flashcards. The difference between how you might normally use flashcards, like we all used to do in our younger years, maybe in grade school or other things, is that this actually uses a computer algorithm to determine, based on your own scoring of those flashcards, when you might need to see that flashcard again to keep it in memory. Now, where this is really useful and important is that normally we're going to forget almost everything we learn by the end of the day, like 80% or I don't know these metrics off the top of my head, but basically you're going to forget a lot of what you hear almost immediately. And to actually hold on to that information and store it in long-term memory, you're going to have to actually receive several reminders. Now for me, I'm really bad with remembering people's names. So this is really useful, is that the first thing you're going to do is you're going to hear something and yeah, immediately you can recall that thing. But, give it a few minutes, an hour, a day, and you've likely forgotten that. Think of a phone number. Somebody tells you a phone number one time, you're likely just gonna, it's gone. So what you do with spaced repetition is that you make flashcards, and it says, okay, tomorrow I'm going to show you this flashcard, and you're going to be like, I don't really remember this very well. You see it again, okay. Then you score it, and you say, I didn't really know this very well. So then it shows you at a short interval later. It's going to say, okay, and in a little bit, I'm going to show it to you again. Okay, I remembered this better this time. So you score it higher. Now I'm going to space it out even farther and farther until eventually your cards are so far apart in their intervals. I have some cards that I'm not going to see for another 11 months because I've done so many repetitions that I remember that information. And as you can see here, at this first memorization and the first reminder, if I never encounter that information again, I'm going to projectedly forget this information almost completely through the passage of time. But when you have this first reminder, it actually resets that curve, and now you're over here. And as you continually reset the curve, it keeps your memorization of that information at a very high level. And so by taking advantage of these cards, you can then store and program a lot of information to be spaced out and repeated at intervals so you can keep it in top of mind memory for a longer duration. This is a great way of making sure you solidify information that you learn. Now, memorization by itself is already basically like building a house on a foundation of sand. Just by memorizing something doesn't really help you solidify memory. Now, that's going beyond spaced repetition, but when it comes to actually using memory and building up memory, one of the greatest things you can do is have a foundation of understanding. Learn something first, understand it, then make flashcards and use spaced repetition to solidify that understanding and then add to it. You also connect it to as many useful and connected contexts of information as possible. If I know that you're only supposed to use a particular spoon for table etiquette in a dining scenario, and I can place that piece of information in a spaced repetition card, but also connect that to the context of that one time I went to that party with my friend Jack over there. He told me about this particular spoon scenario because I messed it up that one time. That connects it viscerally to another piece of information in your mind, a memory, a person, two other different things to connect that piece of information to. And this field goes on and on, dealing with mind palaces and connecting information. Basically, spaced repetition is another very, very useful and powerful tool in the toolbox of learning and memorization. So how did I find out about spaced repetition? My first exposure to spaced repetition and my primary tool for utilizing that learning technique is Ali Abdaal. Many of you probably have encountered Ali on YouTube. He's very big now. And I remember his videos on Anki, however you pronounce it, the spaced repetition flashcard software, and the research papers he reviewed on the actual implementation of the spaced repetition learning methods. And I've done a lot of other reading on the field and the tool and the approach myself, and through my own personal practice, it is an incredibly helpful and useful tool. If you've seen other videos on my channel where I talk about my own ADHD, some of the things I use spaced repetition and Anki in this case for, just beyond learning, I use it to learn programming. I use it to remember things from my different school classes. I use it to learn other languages, but I also utilize Anki and spaced repetition for things like reminding myself to socialize with people because of my object permanence issues with ADHD. So it's also a useful thing to space things out on a recurring basis. You still utilizing those spaced repetition algorithms for spacing out your intervals based on a particular scoring method. And again, all these types of settings are customizable with a lot of different applications and software, but often just the bare bones defaults work just fine. So that's a little overview of what spaced repetition is and why it might be useful and why you might want to look into it. So with that prefacing, we're going to look at a lot of different applications, tools, and resources around using spaced repetition with and within Obsidian to leverage your vault, your notes, and how you want to learn using these tools in Obsidian. So the variety of approaches I'm going to show here utilize either external software, plugins in Obsidian, native functionality, just a lot of different approaches you could take to practice flashcards and spaced repetition. Some people are more technical than others, want to actually use some more of these more robust processes and tools, and some people just want something good enough or it works for them and they don't need, basically how I like to say, they don't need a bazooka for a fly situation. So we're going to cover a variety of different tools, approaches that vary in their complexity and in their usefulness. So let's dive right in. One of the first ideas I had for the just basic flashcard usage in Obsidian is an idea I actually, again, got from Ali Abdaal, but he uses Notion for this. Now there's several different ways we could do this specific type of functionality. I actually have a template for this. If I just put in a fold, you can use HTML in Markdown, so you could technically do this where folds are remembered now. So we can say in summary, here is my question, and then inside details below summary is here is my answer. And then in preview mode, you can see there is a toggle here, and now I can actually show my question and answer. Now, the reason why I'm not really going to put too much emphasis on this one is that this doesn't work natively with bidirectional links or with images the way we use them in Obsidian with, again, the bidirectional link and the exclamation point for transclusion, because it is HTML, which means a lot of the Markdown and functionality native to Obsidian don't work within HTML space. If you're only working with simple text options, maybe that might be something that works for you, but I honestly never really use this, and I think there isn't a better option I'm going to show next. So the next option I'm going to show is, again, the same sort of collapsible hiding of content, but it's this time we're actually going to use headings. So I just have like a couple level 6 headings here, and then below those headings is some content. Here's an answer, here's another answer, whatever. Now, because I'm on Obsidian release 11.0, by the time this comes out, it may already be publicly available, but with 11.0, we now have persistent folding, which I showed in my announcement video, card up somewhere. Now, in the persistent folds, I can actually fold this heading like this. Okay, great. And now, if I leave this page, and if I close it, and then I open up my workbench again, it's still folded. It still remembers. So what you can do is you can actually make your heading the question, and then reveal the answer to yourself and see if you got it right or not. Okay, great. Now, I'm not going to, obviously I wouldn't put this on my workbench. I would actually put this in a relevant note that actually matters. So how might we leverage this like in a spaced repetition manner? Sure, I can hunt all these down eventually, but what if I get the answer wrong? What do I do? What you could do is then take advantage of the review plugin. The review plugin by, I believe it's Ryan James Murphy, takes advantage of another plugin, natural language processing, which I honestly forget. There's so many plugins I use. I forget all the authors, but review and natural language processing. Using these two plugins together, I have a key binding for option R. So if I showed you the command review, option R actually says add a block to a daily note for review. I don't want to add the entire note, but a block. So what I'm going to say is, hey, today is February 15th for me. So my daily note is the 15th. But I want to review this particular flashcard in 3 days because I got the answer pretty right. Okay, cool. Let's move it forward in a spaced repetition manner. So if I did option R, I'm going to get the review plugin saying, hey, when do you want it? I want to see it in 3 days. Great. So now it says, okay, set note workbench for review, blah, 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 but not the note. It's actually going to be the entire block. So now that the block has been added for spaced repetition by using these plugins, what does this look like? So right now you can see this shows this block reference here, but now that I'm done with this question, I can now recollapse it. Okay, great. But I also use the plugin put backlinks into document just for now. I've been playing with it. And we can see right here that, yes, linked mentions. The 18th, 3 days from now shows a transcluded block reference to this particular question. If I go to that daily note, we can see, okay, here we go, review this. Now, if I'm in preview mode, it would actually show me, that particular word, wherever the block reference is next to. But where I might actually care about this is that I can click this link and now be brought to this particular question. Now, if I open this up, it'll actually show me this entire block. Now, it's only going to show me this content here, but if I did something where I moved this block to the heading here, and the way you could do this is you can also, instead of selecting top to bottom to top, if you do top to bottom, it'll actually add the block right here. If I did that and return back to the menu and preview, it'll actually just show me the question. So that way, what I could do is I could think, let's think about this question. What's my answer? Open the link. Okay, here's the question, here's the answer. Did I get it right or not? And then repeat and continue to move these questions and answers forward in your daily notes. And because it already has a block reference, you can just continue to move that block reference forward and you can see the backlinks for that particular block/question. You could also take advantage of these different block and questions and make a single note for each question and just embed the entire note. That might be an even easier solution than doing individual questions inside of a single note. But it just depends. What is your approach? How many notes, questions, ideas, things do you want to create, and how cluttered do you want your vault to be? It really just depends on your own personal approach and if this particular option works for you. The next thing we're going to look at is an application that is outside of Obsidian. So now we're going to move away from some of the native functionality and look at applications and plugins. And I have a specific order for explaining them this way, so bear with me. The first one we're going to look at is Neuracache. You may have seen this around lately. It is a great application for looking at and using spaced repetition with plain text files and Markdown. It can use it with a variety of different applications such as Evernote, Roam, OneNote, Bear, all different kinds of other tools and options just within a single application. Neuracache also has lots of documentation on how to actually utilize the application, as well as getting your flashcards from Markdown into the application. So if you use any of these applications or tools, you can look at this documentation on how to actually get your content into Neuracache, see some video walkthroughs on how to do this, and we're actually going to do this today so you can see how you might actually take advantage of Neuracache. And one other cool feature is that they already have an amazing dark mode, so +1 for me. All right, to begin showing more of Neuracache's functionality, because I literally have nothing in it right now, so I'm going to show you start to finish how to actually get some content flashcards into Neuracache and utilize some of its basic functionality. So to begin, what do we need to do? We need to make some flashcards. So we're going to jump right into my workbench note again, and we're going to make some of our own flashcards. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to ask a question. That's it. Just ask a question. So we could say, what is the distance between the Earth and Sol called? And what's the answer to this? It's an AU, which equals an astronomical unit, I believe. I could be wrong, who knows? So by itself, that's not going to do anything. So how do we actually make this into a flashcard. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're actually going to have to add a hash flashcard. Now, people who have been following my videos and my workflow already know that this is probably not going to work for me because that I don't use these text type of tags for my Zettelkasten system. You could utilize this. Hell, you could probably even use emojis besides this text. We'll test that out. But this is why one of the reasons why I don't use Neuracache, but it could work for you. So we're going to add that there. We're going to say, hey, this line, this is a flashcard. And now we're going to add a line break. And now the question and the answer are there. And below that, we're actually going to add a horizontal rule, which is a 3 dashes for a line. And that is our flashcard. Let's add one more. We're going to say, what is a great learning method? And we're going to say the answer is spaced repetition. And we're actually going to add an image. I'm going to say spaced repetition, which actually is that PNG file. If I hover over it, yep, there it is. There's an image. And this is also a flashcard. But we are also going to add something else. Now we can actually add additional tags beyond just flashcard. And the additional tags help you separate your content out by specific topics / specific decks. So what we're going to say here is we're going to call this one, I don't know, astronomy, and we're going to call this one memory, also learning, and let's just call it SRS. Now this isn't all we can do. There's a lot of other things that we can actually utilize within Neuracache. So we're going to continue making some more cards because we're going to see some really cool usages of just what the application allows you to get away with. So we're going to continue making some more. I'm going to say, what if I don't want an answer? What if I just want a constant reminder to just happen spaced out in spaced repetition, but it doesn't have an answer. It's just, oh yeah, remember this thing. So we can say, hey, remember to always think of others. And then instead of flashcard, we're just gonna put spaced. That's it. Another horizontal rule, and we're done. That's it. That is a new flashcard. It's going to actually be spaced out using spaced repetition, but there's no answer to this. It's just, that's the content. That's it. Now I've gone ahead and made a few other cards, but what I want to highlight here is if you're going to put images in your Neuracache cards, you can't use these bidirectional links the way that we normally do in Obsidian. And if you're only going to drag over a particular file or files, then you need to actually make sure that the images are brought with you. Otherwise, it's not going to know what to pull in. The easiest way to utilize Neuracache, in my opinion, is just to have your vault either copied or completely hosted on something like Dropbox or some sort of cloud hosting, as long as it's not going to interfere with any sort of existing functionality with Obsidian, like caching or plugins or any sort of weird loss of data. The best way to utilize this is just to have it look at the entire vault so you can easily just reference pictures, images, and other notes and other things. So that's an option. Or you could just copy and paste a particular amount of files or a folder of files, drag and drop that, and that would work just fine. But if you're going to use images, what you have to do is actually use the Markdown syntax. So embed it with a transclusion, exclamation point, a single pair of brackets with the alias or whatever it is, doesn't matter, you don't even need an alias, and then the actual image name. So my image name was spaced repetition, but this has a space. In Markdown links, you need to replace the space character with a %20. There are other special character replacements, but the easiest is just if you don't rename images and it just shows that like default pasted image, bunch of numbers for the timestamp, then that's easy. But if you actually name your images, you need to make sure that you actually change those spaces to %20 or just manage your images that way. So the way you can always test that is if it actually renders in Obsidian, then it's likely going to work just fine, as long as the image is brought over to whatever sort of folder or file you're importing. So the next one I also made prior was a spaced one, but are also looking at, can we actually import code blocks like this? And what about LaTeX? And what about HTML? So if we actually render these, you can see, okay, I have some syntax highlighting on this code block, I have some color highlighting on this LaTeX math equation, and I do have some particular HTML formatting going on here by using the actual HTML tags. Now my CSS, these colors, are not going to be applied when I bring things over to Neuracache because there's no CSS to use. But inside of Obsidian, it looks this way. So be aware of that things are not always going to look exactly the same. I'm actually using HTML to do the font styling, and with my LaTeX, I actually have some color stuff going on. You can check that out on my LaTeX video for LaTeX Math Jacks, link somewhere. And this might work in some way, but it's probably not going to work in the way you think. So we have a variety of different types of content: images, text, code, LaTeX, HTML, and we also have flashcards that are just spaced or are full flashcards with question and answer. But Neuracache actually has even more. They also have even shorter cards, such as we can actually do something like question, colon, and then answer, along with flashcard, and let's just call this test. There we go. That's it. Now, you don't actually need the line break here because these are single line question answers, so this is going to be a single flashcard, but I prefer just the separation. But if you don't want to actually do that, you don't have to. We could also have question 2, followed by answer 2, followed by flashcard and test. Great. But is there another easier way? What if I don't actually want to have to write out all of these tags? What if I don't want to do that? Well, there is actually a couple additional options for these single one-line micro flashcards in Neuracache. We're going to do brain answer, and what you can do is easily just add a brain emoji. So brain, if I could type the word brain, or we could also do zap, not zap, and then zap emoji. So using the little lightning bolt emoji or the brain emoji, this will also let you create new micro cards without having to do any of these hashtag stuff. So that way it's able to just take a single emoji and know exactly what to parse and look for. So now we have a bunch of flashcards made. We got spaced flashcards, we got normal flashcards, we got flashcards in various quote-unquote decks based on tag, and we have some micro flashcards on a single line, some that use these little special emoji things to make little tiny card question answers. Lots of really cool usages of flashcard syntax with Neuracache. So now that we have these flashcards made in a file, how can we get these into Neuracache and use the application? That's what we're going to look at next. So like I said, the easiest thing to do would be to just drag your entire vault and put it into some sort of cloud hosting and just have Neuracache look at the entire vault to scan everything. Pick a folder, import a folder, and just import the entire vault. Anything that actually is found using Neuracache's syntax would then be brought in and updated. Great. But if you don't want to do that, what you can do is what I've done here as a simple example just to showcase the functionality. Here's the workbench note where all these flashcards are in, and the image I actually list out here. What you could do is you could always just drag whatever relevant files you have, or a folder where you keep all of your flashcard stuff in a single folder, and just put that folder and copy it into Dropbox or whatever cloud hosting you have. So what I did is I just put all of this in here, and I'm just going to import the entire downloads folder in my iCloud instance. And that's it. I'm just going to import that, and I'm going to be good to go. So now let us actually open up Neuracache, take a look at what we can see, and figure out how to do this. Okay, I'm going to have Neuracache open on my phone, and I'm just going to be going along with this as I am showing you guys. So I have the file in my iCloud instance, and I'm going to actually import it. Now, when you first open Neuracache, you're likely going to see either this menu or any of these others. Now, I don't have anything in here. This is a brand new instance of Neuracache. Nothing is going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Notes, and this is where we actually, they actually are really great about documentation with this application. So we can easily just go to How to Use or Nothing to Sync, whatever. But if I want to say, hey, I want to sync my notes, and I click that, it'll actually even show you, hey, this is where you're going to go. So we click that little icon up there, and it's going to give you this menu. And there's a lot of different things and options in here. What do we need to care about? Well, as somebody who's using Obsidian, what I'm going to care about is importing a Markdown file, which is this Markdown section right here up at the top. And we could easily pick a folder or a file, and even check this, a folder to observe. So I'm guessing, I haven't tested this, I'm guessing what this is doing is if you actually have your entire vault hosted on something like Dropbox or iCloud, that you can have this watch for changes, and if there are any additional changes, such as new flashcards, scan those into your flashcard pool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick Import Markdown Folder, because I have a whole folder worth of stuff. Let's say I have multiple files, multiple images. I'm just going to grab all that stuff. Import a folder. It's going to be this Downloads folder. Okay, and done. That's it. It's that fast. And if you have thousands and thousands of cards, it might take a little bit, but there we go. Now in this Notes section, you can see I have a bunch of different hashtags and in here, and whoa, what is all this? So if I go into each of these, I can actually see different cards that are actually tagged for that. And basically, these are your decks. So the decks can be separated by these flashcards. Now, the flashcard itself, the actual hashtag flashcard, is what you have to make it a flashcard, at least a multi-line one. There, I showed you the other options earlier, but we're going to look at all of these and how they look. So basically, you can actually see this is your interface of all your different decks separated out by flashcards. And if you look at the individual cards, it'll actually show you a percentage of your score on how well you've been learning that item. So let's look at some of the other tabs. If I go to home, okay, so today's queue, I actually have 10, and then the top right, so 0 out of 10. So I actually have some things to review today. I haven't done those, but we could start studying. But if I go to study tab, it'll actually show me some statistics on how I've been doing with my cards as I go through my flashcards in spaced repetition over time. And we can see all the decks over here. They're all listed in red, not green, because I actually need to go through them. So let's do that. Let's go through our queue today, which is all the 10 new flashcards we just put in. And we can look at what these things look like on the front end. So remember to always think of others. There's no hashtags here, and we're just going to drag this to green. Yep, it's good. Okay. Why? Because that was spaced. It's just a reminder. No answer. Cool. Does code work? This is one that should show us a code block. No syntax highlighting, but we do have a code block. I guess you could put an image of a code block. Either way. So, okay. Now, other HTML. Does the HTML actually render and work? It does. It doesn't have my CSS, but it does actually do bold and italic text. There actually is support for some HTML. And then, okay, here's one of our decks, astronomy. What is the distance between the Earth and Sol? That is the AU, astronomical unit. And great, that was a normal flashcard. Oh, brain. This is where we did the brain emoji with a colon separator between the question and answer for a micro card. There's no deck, no hashtag deck here, but there's the answer. Okay, so if you want to quickly make inline micro cards, you can use the little lightning bolt or brain emoji to do that. What about LaTeX rendering? Now you saw mine, I had special color LaTeX and other stuff. That doesn't render, but the formula does render. So we do have math equations in LaTeX, but we lose all of that special color functionality. And then question 2, we have answer 2. These are the inline ones. And then here's the zap emoji. Yep, same thing as the brain. And what is a great learning method? Okay, and so this is where our image was. Now the image at the top, the double brackets, doesn't work because that is the obsidian syntax, the double bracket wiki syntax for transclusion of an image. But the markdown link with the bracket and then the braces, or the parens, actually works as long as that image is in along with that folder where I'm importing my documents and my flashcards from. So because I had the image in there, it actually brought it in. Easiest way to not have to deal with management of that over time is just to have it all brought in and stored in the same place. Import your whole vault, or have it watch and synchronize. So great. And then question, answer, great. And so now we've reviewed our queue. You can see, oh, some are good, some are bad, done. And yay, we've done our first review. So now we can go back and there we go. We've gotten 50% of our cards we did well on today. We still have 5 more in the queue because we did not get them correct. And then 10 out of 10, we have reviewed them. If we go to study, we can see, oh, today we got some green, we got some red, we got some that are in between. And yeah, and one of the great things about this application Neuracache compared to Anki is that the interface and the usage is a lot simpler. Like you can put a lot of stuff into this, but Anki is kind of not very aesthetic of an interface, and it's kind of harder to use than something as simple as import your cards, markdown syntax, multiple types of content, and then a very graphical and friendly interface to actually deal and review your cards. And if we wanted to actually change our spaced repetition algorithm that we wanted to use, there are some options, like we can actually also filter by highlights, notes, flashcards, different options in there, but we can actually change our spaced repetition algorithm by going to our notes tab and actually clicking the ellipsis here. We could stop spaced repetition, we can start it, and we can even change the algorithm. There we go. And so you have a variety of different options to pick. I usually just leave them on the defaults until I really know what I'm doing with all of those, because sometimes the default is just good enough until you really know what you're doing. And just like that, we've already reviewed some flashcards, we can review some more. There we go. And say, okay, those are the ones I got wrong. Okay, Okay. And there we go. We reviewed them and we're done. And easily able to get through your cards and learn. So one last thing I want to show you in Neuracache, right before I go with this and move on to the next application, is I did re-import my documents and I did test it. And if we actually go to the notes here, you can see at the bottom, emoji tags, like the way I use tags in Obsidian, are supported and they do work. So if you wanted to actually take advantage of this and still use the way I use Obsidian, you can totally do that. But what I also want to highlight here is I really enjoy applications like this, and I really appreciate the developers of Neuracache who are respecting your right to your data and your privacy. So I think it's a really good thing to support developers and really push the narrative that we deserve to have the ease of migration, the control of our data, and just making it easy to migrate from applications if it's not right for us. Like, why stranglehold your customers? So I really like Neuracache because it's a very simple application, not completely simple, but it's simple enough to really make it easy to just dive into spaced repetition, get a lot of functionality, a lot of options available, and make it easy to just get stuff from Markdown into cards for you to review. It's really, really great and really powerful. Let's just say though, I'm no longer interested in using this application. I don't want them to have any of my data. I can easily go into this menu to import more cards, but at the bottom, we're going to say clear Neuracache data. Yes, I'm sure everything is gone. All of your stuff, every note, everything is gone. There is now nothing left in this application. And I really enjoy and respect that from developers who respect your right to your data and your privacy. Let me migrate if I choose. Let me clear out my data, make it easy for me to do so. And that actually makes me more inclined to consider an application, even if there's something more shiny and more feature rich out there and available. Sometimes just the fact that you respect my right to have my data, delete it, and migrate at will is something that will actually be a good selling point for you. So I applaud Neuracache for making it that easy to use and migrate from the application. So moving on to the next tool. The next one I'm going to talk about is a very famous and popular spaced repetition flashcard program that is widely used in a variety of fields, especially the medical field. And this one is Anki. Anki or Anki, however you pronounce it, is free and open source software that is actively developed, constantly extended through add-ons and plugins, and there's a variety of different applications that will let us use this specific piece of software with Obsidian and our Markdown files. And I'm going to cover all of those in gross detail. But let me first talk a little bit about Anki, what it can do, what it can offer you, and maybe like what I'm doing that might actually be interesting to you. So like I mentioned, Anki is free and open source software. You can find it on GitHub, and they have a lot of additional pieces of Anki and the functionality around Anki on GitHub. It's written in Python, Rust, several other different application programming languages, and you can download it from their website, Anki or apps.ankiweb.net, and you can download it for pretty much any platform. It's available for Windows, Linux, Mac, and iPhone and Android. The only difference is that the iPhone application actually requires you to pay for it. It's like 20 bucks. It's a little pricey, but I paid for it in case I'm ever on the go and I want to do my reviews. But you can use this on pretty much any platform and you're good to go. iPhone, iPad, Android, Linux, Mac, Windows, whatever. And there's so much you can do with this application. But if you're also looking for a rabbit hole of information on how to use, customize, and really squeeze out every single little bit of value on Anki, and you want an Anki specific channel, the Anking is someone I can definitely recommend with confidence on a lot of Anki based information. There's some really cool stuff in here, like for instance, a video I'm going to make that he has also made about how to actually use a video game controller to improve your repetition speed while also using the application. But there's a lot of information in here, and I honestly have a lot of research left to do on Anki, but this is a great channel for you guys to check out if you want to deep dive more on just the application itself. So by itself, Anki is actually pretty plain. It doesn't really do or look like much of anything, but it is really powerful. Now, right now, you're seeing my Anki decks, you're seeing my plugins and all this other stuff going on, but if we wanted to actually look at just what Anki would look like if you just opened it, we can actually switch to a new profile, add it, and we're going to say YouTube. Okay, we have a YouTube profile, and I'm going to open it. And here's what you would see. This is brand new Anki, nothing into it, a default deck, and that is it. Now, something really cool about Anki is that there is a plethora of add-ons that you can get to extend its functionality. To use those, you can always just go to Tools, Add-ons, and then what you're going to do is actually get add-ons, and you can actually input a code. And where do you get these codes? You would actually go to the Anki website, and in the forums, there will be lists of different plugins and people talking about them, rating them, commenting about them. If you browse those, it'll actually show you all of these different add-ons and their ratings, and you can sort them by ranking. And honestly, there are so many plugins and add-ons available that it's a little overwhelming. But some of the ones I personally recommend are, if you're going to use this with Obsidian at all, and some of the other examples, we're going to use Anki Connect. But one thing you can also do is if you want it to show on Discord as you're playing a game, there's Anki Discord. But some of the really critical ones for actually improving the quality of life with your spaced repetition, I would say are the Image Occlusion Enhanced, Edit Field During Review, and let's see here. Life Drain is good for gamification, and then the review heat map I really enjoy. Those things I just think are really massive value added for your reviews. And I'll show you those in a little bit more detail in a minute, but this is what Anki looks like if you just open it and you have nothing. So first things first, let's make a card. So first thing we have to do is say, okay, what deck do we want to go to? We have a default deck, but we can create a new one. Let's do that. I'm going to say, hey, make a new deck. This one is going to be for Obsidian, enter. Okay, oh, default went away. Why? Because now we actually have a specific deck, but we want a different one. We want to say, hey, this one is going to be for spaced repetition. Cool, we now have another deck. Now, one thing really cool with this is that if I have some cards in this deck, but not in this deck, but this is a child deck of this one, then you'll see some really cool rolling up going on. But what does that look like? Let's see. So if I click on spaced repetition, that deck, I need to actually make a new card. Okay, so there are some hotkeys. We can't just click add, but oh, there I hover, shortcut A. If I hit A, okay, make a new card. Now, this one is actually because I have the plugin Image Occlusion, but I'm just going to stick with basic. Now, some of my card templates are changed because I actually have modified some stuff. But all we really need to do is a typical flashcard, front and back. That is basic. Cool. So I choose basic, and it's going to say, okay, what do we want in the front? Question and answer. That's it. Okay. We can also give it tags here at the bottom. If I did a tag, what this is going to let me do is say, hey, I can sort this and organize these with different tags. So I could say, hey, it's part of my class, C175. Now I might know what that means. That's my database and database management class. Cool. But now if I hit enter, command enter, okay, it made the card. I hit add, you could hit add or just command enter, but it also retains the tag if you're going to make more. But let's get out of there. Now, oh, okay, the spaced repetition deck is showing me something. If I go back to decks, okay, cool. There's a new card and nothing is due because I haven't reviewed anything and it's not due again. So the brand new cards look like this little blue over here, but things that you've already reviewed that are popping back up appear here under due. But now if I take this deck and actually drag it underneath Obsidian, it's now a child deck, which now means that Obsidian now shows one new card. So this way, I also do this for my own personal decks where I'll have multiple programming languages, but I'll have the topic of coding. So that way I can review in a specific context. While I'm prepared to, oh, okay, I'm really answering code questions. I'm not studying Norwegian right now, so I'm going to focus on code questions. This might be a useful feature for you to do, is making these child decks. It does make it a little bit harder to manage when you use some of the applications we're going to look at later. So what sort of inputs and things can we do with Anki and spaced repetition? Well, now you can see that this child deck, Obsidian : spaced repetition, it's now a child deck. We're going to add another card. Now, what can we add here? There's a bunch of stuff in here. Some of this is actually because of my add-ons, but what we have is some rich text format. We also have the ability to add things like LaTeX math and yeah, just close deletions if we're going to do the actual close deletion file, flashcards. So let's do this. I'm going to say, hey, this is going to be bold, italic, and then we're going to say super, sub, and yeah, let's just see what we got here. Oh, and underline. So bold, we're going to make it bold, italic, just like that, and then underline. And now you can also hover and see the exact same thing, Command U, and then subscript, and then superscript, just like that. And I don't even know what this one does. I never use it. Oh, remove formatting. So then if we're done with this, we could say, hey, paste that there. But now I want to show it without formatting. There we go. Just like that. Super easy. We could also change the font color. So we could say, hey, change this to blue. And we could change this to, honestly, whatever. You could change it by clicking the colors and then pick a color. There we go, white, whatever. Select that, and then, if you change the color. But what I really want to show you is that we can also do things like LaTeX. So if I actually get rid of all of that, and we're going to clear this out, let's do LaTeX. Add some LaTeX math inline. So now it's actually going to give you this specific syntax. Now this looks different than what we're used to in, say, Obsidian or MathJax, because this is actually more the original LaTeX math, how you would actually use it in the LaTeX documents. So what we could do here is we could do sum of pi raised to 7 with a subscript of sigma, whatever that might be. And the answer is hello world. I can't spell at all. And then we're just going to enter. Okay, cool. That card is made. Now we can get out of the add menu. We have 2 new cards to review. Let's study. Okay, first one, question, answer. Great. Now, how easy was that? So I have some different colors here on the buttons. I guess it doesn't make a completely blank profile, but I digress. We could say, okay, I need to really review that in another minute. I need to review it in 10 minutes. Or, hey, I'm ready for my first spaced interval. Show it to me in 4 days. We'll pick that one. Here's the equation. Perfect. That's not exactly what I intended, but, it's good enough. Now, one thing we can also do is I can actually control or command Z to undo, and now I'm back to the original question. It removes my answer, and now I can edit this again and pick a different score. Say I accidentally clicked the wrong thing. But you can also hover, see shortcut key. You can actually hold your hand on the numpad characters, so 1, 2, 3, 4 at the top of your keyboard, and actually pick 1, 2, or 3 based on whatever buttons you see, and actually do that to actually score your cards. Now, one of the big draws of Anki is its way of using images, because it's easy to just put content and flashcards into here. Let's just say you have an image of something you want to put in here, and you don't want to have to write anything. You just want images. Totally possible. Now, I have a screenshot application thingy here, so I'm just going to grab a screenshot. Let's just grab that. Okay, cool. I now have a screenshot. Now, if I just paste this in here, I now have an image in Anki to review. It could be an image of whatever I want. It doesn't matter. There you go. Done. Hello. Cool. So now if I get out of here, I can review this. There's the image. There's the answer. Done. And a really great usage of that might be if you're learning languages, you can easily just post a picture of, say, a dog. And how do you say dog in another foreign language? Like, okay, how do I say dog in Norwegian? Hund. There we go. Hunder for multiple dogs, whatever. So that's just pasting an image. With the image occlusion plugin, and this is one of probably the most important and useful add-on for Anki, is with that image, I can say, hey, capture an image with a screenshot, capture. But now with the image occlusion plugin, I can just click on this button here, and it takes my clipboard, what I have on there, and now I have this whole new menu of options available. Oops, I screwed it up there. But what that lets you do is actually edit your images and do something really, really cool. So if I'm gonna make this full screen here, now we have my image in here. Now I can easily just, without even getting into all the custom functionality and all the different options in here, because there are many, I barely even begun to scratch the surface of this. I can just click and drag some boxes. There's one, there's one, there's one. Let's say you're hiding terms or images or pieces of a flashcard. There you go. But now you have some options after hiding some stuff. Hide all, guess one, or hide one, guess one. What this will let you do is say, hey, hide every single block here and only show me, or only let me, or make me guess one of them. Or the other one is, hey, show everything except the one I'm guessing. This is a really good one, hide all, guess one, for easily trying to build that memory. And so now 4 cards added, 4 cards. I only put in 1 image. This is where image occlusion is great for producing lots of really great cards. And that is because now I have 5 cards here, and it will actually show you, well, that's the other one. But now, if we actually, let's do this. Oops, I put it on the other menu. There we go. So now, let's say, oh, wow, here's all my blocked off pieces of content. And here's the one I'm guessing. What is that? I don't know. And it will show me only that one instead of showing me everything at any time. So this is a really great way of showing and incrementally making a ton of flashcards off of a single image. So again, image occlusion plugin, really, really useful for Anki. So far I've just been talking about what Anki can do, the power of Anki, add-ons for Anki, everything related to this, because this actually will tie in with some of the other tools in Obsidian that we're going to use and show. But now I'm actually going to switch back to my own current profile. And I'm going to show you some of what I have going on here. So I'm going to open up my profile, and I actually want to remove the other one because I don't like clutter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that one, yes, and open mine. Great, so I have a bunch of nested decks here. I have different things going on, cool. But what I also have is, we're going to create a brand new default deck, default, great. Oh, it doesn't actually like that name, I guess. So let's just do test then. So test deck has nothing in it, but now if I add a card, I have some options here, and some of these I have changed, deleted, or made my own. So with basic, it's just a front and back, but I also have these two custom fields. This will work with the Obsidian to Anki plugin I'm going to show you later. And you'll see where these fields come in handy later on. But other than those two added, it's the same thing, front and back, all the different types of content, images, things that we can do just like that. But if we also have this one, F1 FDF, I don't use this at all. I don't know why it's here, and I just leave it in case I need to have a template to play off of. But there's also close deletion. Close deletion is really, really useful because it's letting you see everything in context except what you're actually trying to hide. So I could say my name is, and then we could say Command-Shift-C, and my name is Bryan, and then my last name, Jenks. Okay, cool. There we go. Now, this weird little syntax here is actually close deletion. Now, it has a number too. What does that look like? Well, now I could actually say, I'm going to hide off my last name too. I'm going to make that a close deletion, and it already increments to 2. Okay, this is saying I'm going to get 1 card, 2 cards out of this close deletion. But let's say you have multiple fields you want to hide together as part of 1 card. And I'm going to say, because I said my name is, and then close deletion, Bryan, but I'm going to change this 3 to a 1. That's cool, whatever. And the back, completely unnecessary. We don't need the back. This is extra. Great, and I'm going to add that. Now we have added that card. Now if I go to the test deck, I have 2 cards because we had 2 closed deletions. Study now, my name is, what is it? I said my name is blank. Okay, this is closed deletion. Really useful for actually showing you context and making you guess. And this is extra, not required. So you can make yourself guess something and then actually have information, resources, details about it listed here in the extra portion. There you go. And then the second closed deletion, just like that. Now what we also can do is image occlusion, which I never edit this way. I have never touched these. I only use the actual add-in interface, and that's it. So I honestly could not tell you anything about that. But here's something else I've done that I'm going to make a video on, is actually my way of using programming cards in Anki. And that's a way of using the front, back, and additional info to show some certain portions of code, but missing, and actually making you type that code. So I'll show you more about that, and I'm going to tease you here with it, but I'm going to show you in another video completely on just that and how I did it later on. So now, looking at these cards, okay, cool. What do we want to do with them? Well, you can actually modify these templates. So I could say, hey, here's a basic card, and I'm going to look at the fields. I can actually customize how many fields, what type of fields, what do I want to put in there, how do I want them to be treated? And this is a really useful part of Anki, is that you can granularly customize all kinds of stuff and really make this work for you. The basics, the basic functionality by itself, already useful, but when you really want to start squeezing out some extra value, totally possible. So I have all these fields in here, but I also want to say cards, and this will actually let you style your cards. This is why my cards have Grovebox colors, because if you know me by now, Grovebox is life. So I have my front template, I have my back template, I have my styling, and this actually shows custom CSS to actually style my cards to actually look like this. Normally they do not look like this. This is how I have my cards in Anki. And one of the great things about Anki is that you can also sync this to the cloud, so that way all of your decks are available for your mobile applications, other computers, whatever you log in on. And all of this is synced so that you can easily keep track of your review statistics. And one of the great things about Anki is that you also have this great statistics page. This only shows that deck, but if I show you my entire collection and show stats, you can easily see my entire collection of my entire Anki system and everything that I've been reviewing, all my cards, all this stuff. And all of this is just syncable to the web. You can review it on the web, review it on a phone app, on your desktop, wherever, and it's available on all major platforms. amazing, complex, virtually accessible on everything tool that can really help you learn, retain, and memorize information. Now, with that said, we're actually going to look at how we can use Anki and leverage it with Obsidian using plugins and other functionality within Obsidian. Quick note before we continue, I do have a newsletter where I send out bulletins about new tools I find, great new concepts I've learned, different interesting things. If you're interested in any of that type of content or just want to see like what I'm working on, what I'm up to, get notification of new videos, any of that type of stuff, you can sign up to the newsletter in the link in the description or the pinned comment below with the timestamps. And if you are not signed up and you want something like my templates, mermaid charts, or custom CSS in Obsidian, I offer those as a thank you for signing up to the newsletter. Link to that is below, and let's get on with the video. Okay, so diving into the Obsidian to Anki plugin in Obsidian. Now, I've been following this plugin since it was just a Python script and brand new by the user Pseudonium. I've been talking about putting out this video about it for so long, and it's finally here. I finally wanted to do something on just all spaced repetition options in working with Obsidian, and I'm finally getting to it. And by now, it's actually a full-fledged plugin for Obsidian, not just an external script in Python, but actually a native plugin written with TypeScript. And it's very powerful and very useful and leverages a lot of Anki's settings, but still using Obsidian and Markdown. So it's actually still really powerful because it can take advantage of all of that functionality, but using Obsidian how it's meant to be used. So we're going to look at that today. So if we actually go dive right in, the plugin is actually going to be in community plugins, and we're going to browse for it, and it's going to be Obsidian to Anki. Obsidian, if I can spell, Obsidian to Anki, right here by Pseudonium. Now, this one is definitely a very complex plugin because there's a lot of options and a lot of functionality. And all you have to do to get started is first, 1, have Anki installed. 2, add this plugin. Now, there's also going to be a setup right here, so you can also follow these settings. Have Obsidian downloaded, obviously add this plugin, have Anki installed, but we also need the Anki plugin, Anki Connect. Now this is really, really important. So now what we can do is we can go to Anki and we can say, hey, go to Tools, Add-ons. I need an add-on. What is it? Anki Connect, but we don't have that yet. So we're going to search for it. Get add-ons. Browse for it. Now we can actually look for it. Oh, right here, Anki Connect. It's right at the top. How about that? So you can also do that, or you can just, Control F and search for it. But Anki Connect, and then you can find this code. This code is the actual number for the add-on. We're going to grab that. So now, after we grab that code, we can go here. We can actually put that code in, say OK, and it will install the add-on. But now, here's the add-on. As if we installed it, I can click Config. And what you're going to put in this little pocket, you're not going to see this. You're going to see maybe something different. But from the actual plugin, you're going to have this little text right here, this JSON code right here. This is going to be from the plugin README, the Obsidian to Anki plugin. We're going to copy that and we're going to paste that into this little section here for the configuration. We're going to say OK. We're going to close this menu, and then you're going to restart Anki. Close it down completely. Now, if you use this plugin, you're going to have Anki open for the plugin to function because it has to have something to connect to update and sync your flashcards to Anki from Obsidian. So if you're going to use it, have Anki open. So diving into the settings, what can this do and how can we leverage it? There is a lot to unpack here. Now, the README by itself is not going to give you too much. There's a whole wiki of documentation for this application, this plugin on the repo, but I'm actually going to show you some of what I have going on. So if I go to Obsidian Anki settings, now what this is going to show you is a bunch of information here. What is all this? What is all this doing? So if I actually go to note type tables, I can click on this note type table and it's going to say, okay, what is all this? Now Anki is open and it is connected to Obsidian. So this is working right now. It is connected to my Anki instance. So it's already picking out all of my different card templates. Oh, basic, F1 FDF, Cloze, image occlusion. Okay, okay. Now remember when I said I had those 2 extra fields I added to basic cards? This is where they come into context. File link field and context field show something very, very interesting in Anki. Now, I'm actually going to show you an Anki card of mine that actually shows this. Now, let's go to, I think it's actually databases. If I show this, let's go through some of this right here. So when I actually made my cards in Obsidian, I actually have a file link. This link will actually open up that document that has the card. So you can actually see behind this, here's actually the document with my Anki cards in it, and it linked to that. But also in here, it'll actually show me the context, the name of the note, it's under chapter 1, a subheading of 1.4, and the actual types of database. This actually shows context. So this way you have a link and context to the exact note. Say you need to revise a card and then sync it so it's updated, you can do all of that with this plugin. So first of all, how do you actually set up those additional fields? How you do that would be you have to go and first of all get out of here. So we're actually going to go Decks, and I'm going to say add, and now you're adding a card? No, you're going to go to the type of card you're looking at. We were on basic. Here's these two fields. How did I get those? So I'm going to say fields. You won't have these. You need to make them. So the first thing we can do is say add a new field. That's it. That's it. Add a new field. And you're good. That's it. That's all there is to it. Add those two fields, and then when you actually open up Anki and the settings for Obsidian to Anki, you will then see from this drop-down, I can now select any of those 4 fields. And so I just named them exactly the same for the most part, and now they work. And they're bonused fields. So this way, when I actually show the cards, they're just stuff that shows with the answer, the back, because I don't care about it. It's not part of the question. So, hey, what's the front? The front. What's the back? It's the front and showing the back. Everything else is just extra. It shows with it. It doesn't matter. So that is actually how you set that up. Some of these other ones, like this one I haven't bothered with. Image occlusion, I don't even touch with this plugin because it just seems too complex for me. I'd rather just do image occlusion in Anki. But then close deletion is really the same thing. And then my programming card, again, same thing. That's the note type table, the type of cards you're going to create. Folder is if you actually wanted to have a specific folder of cards go to a specific deck. And I honestly haven't played with this too much because I don't use folder hierarchies very much at all, but you totally have the ability to do some manipulation based off of folders, either the tags or the decks that you want to have set. If you use a rigid hierarchy, you can totally leverage that for your Anki decks. I do not. Next, we have all these different syntax settings. Now, I haven't messed with any of these. I left them exactly how they are by default. Begin, end, start, inline, end inline, target deck, file tags, delete, frozen, all those are exactly the same. Now, what you can do here is also change your default tag. Now, this is going to be a tag for Obsidian, or for Anki. For all the cards that Obsidian to Anki plugin adds to Anki, this is going to add this tag to all of those cards, so you're able to easily separate them out and identify them. Now, what you can also do is say, hey, if I don't say a specific deck to send this card to, add it to a default deck. And I don't like that, so I always specify what deck I'm going to use. Now, the scheduling interval is how often do you want this plugin to run. Basically, if you make any changes to any of your cards, it will sync automatically, but at what interval? And I have this set to just like 30 minutes, but you have to have Anki open for that to work. Add file link and add context. Those are the toggle options to utilize the note type table, these fields that we added to the cards. To actually add something to that, you actually have to turn that on and it will do that for you. Now, curly close changes the close deletion syntax. I honestly just think it's not a good idea to mess with this. It's more portable to just use the Anki close deletion syntax. And I'll show you in a minute how I leverage the template plugin to deal with all this. Again, curly close highlights to closes. This is using the highlight markdown to change it to close deletions. For this curly close, I just say don't use those, in my opinion. It's more portable to not use those. ID comments. This is going to say the comments are, this is the unique IDs that are assigned to each card. And it's going to add a comment to those. And I'll show you what that means and how that's useful in a little bit. And then add Obsidian tags. Interpret the hashtag tags in Obsidian in the fields of a note as Anki tags. I don't useless, but I think it could be useful if you have a note that is tagged as something, like a note that is tagged for like me, C++ programming, but then I have some Obsidian flashcards in there that get sent to Anki. Well, now they're also tagged as C++ in the tags field. Could be useful. Regenerate note type table. If you change any of your flashcard templates, you can regenerate that table and then set up that. Clear media cache. This will, as you can see right here, clear the list of media file names and things that have been added to Anki. So for instance, if you have templates of Anki cards, it's going to add those to to a default deck because they're the templates and they still get picked up. But once you suspend those cards, it already has an ID assigned. It's not going to add duplicate cards, so you can basically just ignore this unless you have something that needs to be rebuilt. And really just check out the troubleshooting section of the wiki for the plugin to really dive into more of that. And then clear file hash. This is again for additional IDs on the cards. But honestly, if you just use this simply and don't get too crazy with it, you're not going to really encounter too many problems. And if you do, there's plenty of documentation, and you can always ask questions in the forum and on the repo about this. Okay, so now that we've covered the settings, how can we use this live? We're going to use this and we're going to make something out of it. Okay, so I'm going to add some new flashcards. Now I have a variety of flashcard templates that, again, I offer all of my templates and things for free if you sign up to my newsletter, link below. But I have a bunch of different templates here. Now it says Anki and then a number. What these do is this lets me it shows me the order of things that I need to set up when I'm making new flashcards. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add Anki and then 0. Okay, first thing we want to do is I want to say, okay, link. What's that? Okay, this is if I'm actually going to make a new link to an actual document that it holds the flashcards for whatever subject, because I don't want to have a bunch of flashcards on an actual note that might be on Obsidian Publish. That would look really ugly and have a lot of inline and flashcard. No. So I just make a template of this note, workbench, Anki cards. So that's a template I could use. I'm not going to do that here. But okay, so Anki, and then that would be link, but now section. This is saying, okay, if I'm going to do an inline section, well, let's just say, hey, here's the note, but I'm going to have a section for multiple Anki links. So I can easily change this to 1, to 2, to whatever, and actually have multiple sections. Okay, that has nothing to do with the plugin. That's how I organize things. But now for the plugin, we're going to say Anki, and then we're going to say 1, target deck. Where are we sending these cards to? Now I have some of my decks listed here. I've already changed some of these, so this is actually a little bit out of date. But what we're going to do is I'm going to say, we're going to send this to a new deck. So if I go to my Anki decks over here, we have no deck. We're going to say, okay, test. So now what I also want to show you is something if you have a child deck. So we're going to say test child underscore child. Okay, so we're going to take this one and make it a child. So now we have parent test and then child test child. Okay, so now what I'm going to say is our target deck is going to be test. We're going to remove all that. Cool. What are the tags we're going to add? Oops. We're going to say the tag we're going to add is test tag. Okay, cool. Okay, so we got deck, we got tags. What do we add next? Anki. 1, okay, nothing. So 2, what type of card? That's it. So just where are we sending it to? What do we want to tag it as? And what type of card? We're just going to do a very simple basic card. Okay, so here's some stuff. Now, what I noticed that there were some issues by keeping the word front in here. This shouldn't cause issues, but it was. So I typically just remove that now and just put my content here. So I could easily just put in some text content, and I'm just going to pick something from the README that shows a variety of options. Okay, I added a bunch of content in here to show a variety of options. We have italics, bold, HTML, underlining, headings. We can also do the mix of bold and italics. You can do ordered lists, unordered lists, web links through the Markdown links. You can also do code blocks with inline code, or you can do actual syntax highlighted code blocks, tables, and LaTeX math equations. Wow. So we can also add additional tags. This was a test, and that's it. Do we have an answer for the back of this? There's an answer. And then the end. This is a card. This is an Anki card, and it's going to send it to the test deck. Great. So let's do that. So now we're actually going to go to the Obsidian Anki plugin. I'm going to click this to scan the vault. It's going to take a few minutes. Great. and it's scanning. So it's going to look through the entire vault of everything that matches start, target deck, all this stuff. It's going to find all those things, scan it, and actually add those to Anki. Or if something already exists, and it's done now, it's gonna, if it already exists, it's just going to update. This is one of the really powerful things, is because now you can see it ran, it's done. Below tags and before end, this ID is actually the ID for this specific card. What this lets me do, and I will show you in a minute, is actually let you update this card over time. So now if we go to Anki, okay, here's a default one. That's weird, but here's test. Okay, test. There we go. Okay. Now, again, CSS was not supported. That's why. But now, this note showcases a bunch of different types of formatting, bold, HTML underlining, headings at various levels, lists, great. Now, why was there a split there? There shouldn't have been a split. What's going on? Oh, back, because it saw this and it was confused and it split this onto the back of the card. We don't want that. So if I actually remove that, because that actually caused an error, now, because it has this ID, it's going to see this card and already take us back and affix that card. So let's sync again. So sync, it's going to take a little bit. All done. That's fast. Okay, go back to the card, study. Here's everything. So now we have all this stuff. We got the web links, we got code blocks. This is actually in code syntax. It's the inline code. We also have, the actual syntax highlighting on the code block itself. That's useful. Tables and LaTeX math equations. Awesome. Now, if you're going to do images too, images are also supported. So now I could easily just take my spaced repetition image using the wiki link syntax, send that to Anki. It's successful. Okay, we're going to get out of here. We're going to open it back up, study, and now the image is in here too. Just like that. So that way you're able to use the actual native Obsidian syntax to add your images and items into these cards. Wow, already amazing. And if I actually added those additional fields to have the basic card add the context to this, which I did. So if I show answer, it will actually show me the actual answer here. And if this was the type of card that actually showed those additional pieces of context, it would appear at the end. But wow, already what we can add here, all these different pieces and items of functionality. This is just the basic card, a front and back card. So next I actually want to show you a Cloze deletion card. How do we do that from within Obsidian into Obsidian to Anki? So now I'm actually going to get out of this deck, and I don't want this card to exist anymore. We don't need it anymore, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add above the ID the word delete. And what you can now do is delete everything under this card. So there, we're just going to say, hey, delete, and now we can run this again, and it will actually remove that ID and say, it's all gone. It's all gone. Everything is deleted. If I go back to Anki, okay, there's something in default, but I know what it is, but there's nothing in test. The card is now deleted. Inside of default is actually likely a template. Yes, that is a template. So what we can do is just say, hey, I'm going to suspend that with the shift @ symbol, and that suspends that permanently. And because they have IDs, they're forever ignored. But now, whoa, okay, card is gone. Very easy to edit, update, sync, and delete cards if they're hosted from within Obsidian. But now I actually want to put in a Cloze deletion card. So I'm going to say Anki 1, 2, Cloze card. We're going to put in a Cloze deletion card. So did you see this ID exists here? This is actually the template it picked up by accident. So because that happened, I can actually get rid of that in my template. So Cloze, and this will likely happen to you if you use my templates. So inside of this Anki template for the Anki Cloze card, it's going to actually give it an ID. But because that was actually brought over into Anki to that default deck, and I suspended it, an identical card exists, it's not going to add it back. So that way I don't have to worry about this syncing ever again. So what I can do is I can actually just get rid of this entirely. And I'm going to say, get rid of that, and done. So now I actually want to Cloze delete something. Say my name is, and now I also have a template for the Cloze deletion syntax. Insert, Cloze. There we go, Anki Cloze. Done. Okay, there it is, text. I'm going to say, Bryan, there's my name. Done. What's the extra? Last name is Jenks. Cool. What are the tags? I'm just going to say Cloze. Done. There we go. Now we can sync this. Oh wait, but I want to send this to the child deck, no longer test, but test child. How do I deal with multiple decks that are nested? That is when you add double colons. So now I can say test and child, and now this will send it to the correct deck. So now when I sync this, it will sync, it'll say yes, give it an ID, it is now in Anki. When I go over here, it appears in test because that's the parent, but now it's in test child. Going here, here's the actual close deletion. My name is Bryan, and my last name is Jenks. There we go, and it shows the actual template here, Obsidian, and the actual file, context and link directly to, there's the link, takes you to that file. Really, really useful for getting cards from Obsidian into Anki. But let's say this is a lot of text and it's very verbose and it's just, you don't want to have to deal with all of this block of text for every single card because it can be a lot. Believe me, I got some cards from my database management foundations class and oh my lord, there are a lot of cards to deal with. This can be a lot. This is why I made an external file to deal with all of these because that's 500 lines of text for just flashcards. There are inline options available to you, as well as custom regular expression options with the Obsidian to Anki plugin. We're going to take a look at those next. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this card now because we're done. So get rid of that, and we're going to say delete, and remember we're going to sync this one again. So we're going to sync. It's going to delete that card. We are done. There we go. Okay. So now what if you want to add inline cards? Now I don't use these at all because I just don't prefer the syntax. But one thing you can do is you can do I start and I end, and you're going to say front and back in a specific syntax. Now I don't use these, so I don't have a template for them, but you can use them. What it starts with is the I start, ends with I end, just like in the settings menu right here, start I or end I. Whoops, see, I messed it up because it actually goes at the end. And what this is going to let you do is say, here's my card. It's on a single line, kind of like Neuracache, but you're going to say what type of card in the actual single line. So it's going to be in square brackets, what type of card. This is the front of the card, and then you say back with a colon, and that's going to be the back of the card. Okay, so now let's sync this and see what it's going to do. It's going to go to test child, the parent deck or the child deck. Sync that. It now adds a ID before the end I. If we go to the test child deck, study now. This is a test. Test successful. Done. That's it. So now that card exists and it's in line. That is how you can do an inline card. We could also do a close deletion. Actually, was that already capitalized or not? Yes, so it was. So we can actually say, hey, make this a close deletion, and we're going to say test is going to get replaced with a close, and the text is going to be test. Quit. All right, so then the back extra is just going to be this. So actually, because the cards are different, we're actually going to have to see what that field is named. So it's going to be back extra. So back extra. And we'll see if this works. It might not, honestly. I don't use this. So there we go, added. And then if we go back to the deck, test child, study, that one is, there we go. So this is a test, and see, it didn't work. So it should just be back or something. But in any case, you can see that there are actual inline cards that you can use and take advantage of with, hey, even close deletion. Now in the plugin wiki documentation on GitHub, there's a litany of regex or regular expressions that you can actually add for specific type of card functionality. Basically, regular expressions are looking up different pieces of syntax to pull out your flashcards from your Markdown documents. And by doing it this way, you're able to take advantage of things like you want remnote style single line cards where you have just the double colons. You can totally do that. You just have to add a specific regular expression line to a particular field in the plugin. For instance, if I wanted this regular expression for remnote style flashcards to work for, say, my basic card template, I need to copy this regular expression. I'm going to go back to Obsidian. I'm going to say, hey, for my basic card here, I'm going to insert a custom regular expression. That's it. I just pasted it right there. We're good to go. Let's go out of here. And now I'm going to go to my workbench. And I'm going to say, okay, it's going to go to test child, and I'm going to have it be test child. I'm just going to call it simply like that. And so by setting that custom regular expression, it's going to find that particular piece of flashcard, and it's going to find the target deck, find the tags, add those, and then see, okay, parent, child, or basically front, back of the card, and it's associated with the basic template. So with this, it lets me easily separate into front and back an inline flashcard using remnode style flashcards. So if I run the sync on the plugin, it's going to add the ID below it. Okay, great. Go to Anki, click study, test, child. Front and back of the card. Simple as that. Now, if we edit this card, you can see here's the context. I can click that, go to the file. It just tells you where it was from. Obsidian to Anki is a tag added automatically, and test tag was what we set right here. So with this, you're able to easily create your own custom card templates, link them up, add custom data to those card templates from the plugin settings menu, do inline cards, do custom regular expressions for what type of inline cards you want, all different kinds of functionality to really leverage the power of Anki. But this is really the more technical option for dealing with space repetition inside of Obsidian. There are some easier options, but this one is the one that allows you the most power. This is like your Swiss Army knife. All these different tools and options, all available right here at your fingertips. And there's lots of documentation on the wiki for this plugin to take advantage of it. And plus, Sidonium is a really active developer. He or she, they are always in the server answering questions, promoting this plugin because it is so very powerful and useful. I've been using this and following this plugin's development since it was a brand new little Python script way back, and it's come a long way. It's really, really amazing and greatly fleshed out. So I have a bunch of workflows here listed out for utilizing this plugin that I know of and could think of, and what I actually use. You could just have all of your notes and all of your flashcards for those notes in a particular folder and have those folders scanned to your Anki decks based on the folders menu in the settings for the plugin. I don't like lots of folders, so it's not something that's going to work for me, but that might be a workflow that works for you. You could do linked notes, which is what I'm currently doing, where I have my main notes for a class or something, and then I just have, hey, this class, flashcards, and on that note is just all the spam of the flashcards, just all that syntax, all that writing, and that way I'm able to keep my main notes clean. But you also could do inline cards if you so chose to actually have them inline in the text. I don't like to do that, so I don't even use them at all. And then one other way of using this plugin to your benefit without having to maintain a lot of stuff is you could easily just create these cards in Obsidian, sync them into Anki, and then delete all the stuff in Obsidian. It's basically a one-way sync. You could do that. But if you wanted to edit those cards easily or do like a regular expression, I did a regular expression edit on like 50 cards at once to easily change something. And, it worked great. But then you can sync those cards back to Anki. So if you don't want to have the ability to sync and update those cards, then maybe you don't want to delete those and do a one-way sync. But you could just make them in Obsidian, send them to Anki, and then get rid of the stuff in Obsidian. It's basically a great way of doing a bulk add, but that might not be for you. The next plugin I'm going to talk about is, again, another Obsidian plugin. This one is the new kid on the block, and I've been watching the development of this one relatively closely. It mixes a lot of the best things about Obsidian to Anki and Neuracache in that it allows you to do a lot of the simpler types of operations with Neuracache of just getting content into a space repetition system. It also allows for card reverse, card space, double colon syntax very easily without any sort of additional lots of technical setup. And it also supports LaTeX images, Obsidian URIs, references to notes, code syntax highlighting, tags, context-aware mode, where it tells you the heading, the note, and all this stuff, but with minimal syntax. Basically, Neuracache syntax with a lot of the power of Obsidian to Anki, but without a lot of complex finagling. So it's really kind of like more of a middle ground between Neuracache and Obsidian to Anki, but still letting you keep all the stuff in your own private systems, because this will also take advantage of Anki Connect the same way that Obsidian to Anki does, So this will also work in the same way. It'll sync to Anki, but using minimal syntax like Neuracache. So we're going to take a look at some of these options today. So utilizing the new Flashcard plugin, the new kid on the block, we need to actually download it. So we're going to say Flashcards. There we go. There it is. Download it. We can update it, activate the plugin in the way you normally would. And I haven't even looked at the options yet. So we do have some options like we can actually test this and see if it actually works. I know it does because I already have this stuff set up. And we also have context-aware mode. This is the same thing where it says what file, what heading, where exactly it is. This one will actually add old cards made without source. Nope, don't need that. Code highlighting, yeah, we do want to add code highlighting. Default deck, it's just named default. That's normally the same. And then do we want to actually identify the flashcards in the note? Sure, why not? So basically, I don't really have to change anything. Now, one really interesting thing that the way this plugin works compared to Obsidian to Anki is that it actually leverages the YAML header. So in here, we define our card deck in the YAML header. So cards-deck, and then you actually list out the deck. If you have a parent-child, like I do, test child here, you do the same sort of syntax, just like this. Now, with tags, this is another reason why this one isn't going to work for me, is that it also hijacks the tags in the YAML header here. So this means that whatever I put in this tag field will also spam my tag pane in here. So I don't like that, and I'm not going to use this plugin for that reason, but you can actually put additional tags in here. So like we could also put in, because this is an array, we're going to say tests. There we go. So now we have 2 tags for these cards. So now we're actually going to generate the flashcards. Okay, I click the button, successfully inserted 4 cards. Now, oh, interesting. This one actually does not do the HTML comments. It does basically like a block reference hash, but below each of the below this card. So this way it is actually more than a normal block reference hash. That's interesting. Now, one thing to know is that, hey, why did it only add 1 card? None of these other ones have it. Now, all these syntaxes do work according to the documentation. So no matter where you put the double colons with spaces, it should just work. But it only added the first one. Why? So this way it's detecting a question and answer, but it's hijacking the heading. The heading here is the question. Then it's showing, hey, here's my question under this heading with this answer. So what we're gonna have to do is actually add a heading over each individual card here, but there's multiple ways of doing syntax. This is actually just an inline syntax. So we're gonna go over a couple of them, but that's interesting. So then when I actually go over to Anki, here's the card, test child, okay, got it to the right deck, study. It actually shows me, interesting, hashtag obsidian, hashtag tests, okay. And then this is actually one of those tags that I added. It didn't have the emoji, but okay, so we do that. There's my question, my answer. This is actually the context-aware mode. This is the question, the actual heading, but then the actual question. Heading, actual question. So that's interesting. Now if we edit this, obsidian and tests, okay, it didn't add the emoji like Neuracache does, so that's interesting. But okay, so it actually can work. So reviewing the documentation a little bit more, one thing we can also do is say each of these different headings is a hashtag card. This actually will let you say, this is a card, and then give me what is below it. But because we also have context-aware mode on, it'll also show some interesting results for these subheadings. Let's see what this does. With all of these different cards, wow, okay, so each of these is given its own little hash because they're each a card, okay? So now if we go back to the vault, and okay, 5 new cards. Let's start going through some of these. What do these look like? Okay, that's the inline one we added, okay. Computer science languages, stuff. Languages, stuff, okay. So then we're gonna see, oh, okay, additional deeper levels. Okay, languages, oop. So this is a really cool way of seeing, like, those could be the questions, but these are also just answers. Okay, now I wonder what would happen if we said, okay, instead of Java, we have my question, double colon, then we sync it again. Okay, updated 2 cards. Okay, so let's actually go back in, study, oop, okay, oop, C++, okay. But then we have Java, my question. So in this case, this is giving me the heading and now a question, but then the answer is still the answer. So this way, this is actually just showing us the entire context of each heading, but then if you also do the double colon, it'll show you that as part of the context-aware question. If you don't like the messiness of that context-aware list of stuff going on, you can turn it off by turning off context aware mode. So let's do that. Let's turn that off and sync it. Okay, successfully updated, and there we go. My question, my answer. Done, just like that. Okay, that's pretty neat. Okay, let's try and break this plugin and see what we can do. I have the top level heading. Now, I also have this subheading with a hashtag card, so this and everything below it should be a card. Now, these subheadings do not have hashtag cards, so will they just be picked up as formatting? I don't know yet, we'll see. Now, I also have an image, I have tables, code, links, inline code. Okay, one thing I want to see, let's also see if we can get HTML in here. So let's just do underline, and we're going to do HTML underline. Now, one thing I haven't tested recently is actually putting in the audio files. I'm not sure how many people do this, but there actually is the functionality to put in audio files into Obsidian by having it just, record your own voice. Now, I haven't turned it on in a while because I haven't really had too much of a use for it, but it is actually possible if I can just find the core plugin for it. Let's see, where is it? Audio recorder. So now with audio recorder, we're actually going to record some audio here. This is audio added to Anki. Okay, so then where did that go? Okay, here it is. I added it right here where my cursor was. So now we're going to put that right there. It embeds that audio. It's an audio player. This is okay, so yeah, that worked. Now, with all this content underneath this card, let's see what breaks it and what doesn't. Okay, let's sync it. Okay, it's been added underneath this levels thing instead of the actual card. Okay, well, let's see what this actually looks like. Let's study some cool stuff. Okay, so some cool stuff. Where's that? That's the card. And then it broke, I think, at varying levels. Oh, it included levels. Okay, so it can handle all those formatting. It can handle headings, but as soon as it encountered content below levels, it kind of broke. Okay. Let's see, another card. Okay, so it did not like some stuff below levels. Interesting. I'm not sure why, but let's actually delete these headings and see how it plays nice without additional headings, because it does look like it could handle it, but it's a little bit more finicky than something like the Obsidian to Anki plugin. Okay, so let's try it again. Now let's sync. Okay, oh, did not insert a card, so probably I need to update this. Comes cool stuff too. Okay, generate flashcard. It does not insert it. That is tricky. Okay, I tried doing an insertion again, and I think maybe what it's mad about is this double line break or line breaks in general. Let me test one more time, but it did add at least this block of content right here, because now we have this, but that's it. I'm not too happy with that, so let's just get rid of all these line breaks, and maybe that might make it happy, maybe not. Let's see. Okay, sync one more time. Okay, oh, there it is at the bottom. Okay. Get rid of that one. Some more for you, and wow, okay. So the audio, interesting way of treating the audio. What does that do? It looks like it'll just take us to here, but it doesn't actually play the audio inside of Anki. I wonder if the other plugins do that, but we do have ordered lists, unordered, okay, code blocks, code highlighting, tables work, images work. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that does actually work with this, but it does look like it's a little bit more sensitive to line breaks and to headings than the Obsidian to Anki plugin. So again, a lot of things capable in this plugin, but maybe not as much as some of the other pieces, but pick which one of these tools will work best for you, which is what's not too complex, what has enough tools available for you to use, and what is just a pleasure to use, what works with your workflow. For instance, for me, these tags and taking over the YAML header, this might work for me, but this and the tags in taking advantage of Obsidian tags like that does not work for my workflow. So for me, a lot of these applications and plugins do not work for me, but maybe they might work for you. So hopefully you've seen the power of spaced repetition and the tools that will make it more available and readily accessible for you. Neuracache, some of the plugins, just basic toggling inside of Obsidian with remembered persistent folds, lots of things to take advantage of memorization and learning tools. And hopefully this review and just the absolute state of spaced repetition in Obsidian was helpful. Do let us know in the comments below how you're using any of these tools, what you like about them, what you like, dislike about the others, and let us know any cool things that you've discovered, found, and used these tools for. Spaced repetition is an amazing tool in your toolbox for effective learning and knowledge building. A quick note before we go, if you'd like to talk more about this and just connect more with the people who are interested in my content, what I put out, what I write about, what I do, then we do have a Discord server. Link to that is in the description below. It's a very fun, welcoming place. We talk about a lot of different things. We'd also talk about mental health, ADHD, knowledge management, software, Linux, code, and a variety of other topics. It's a very fun and welcoming place, and that's exactly how I want to keep it. And lastly, a big thank you to the Patreon and GitHub supporters and sponsors who support this channel on an ongoing basis. Thank you Rito, Leonardo, Justin, Ed, Elliot, Klaus, Pippa, Rex, Alberto, Clark, Joel, John, Paul, Jimmy, and Rob. Thank you all for all of your support and your patronage. All of this is not required. I greatly appreciate that you do appreciate the channel and like supporting it. And the best way to do that is GitHub sponsors, followed by Patreon for an ongoing basis. And if you want to do it as a single transaction, Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal are amazing as well. So thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one.